They mocked the alien for his scars, until the human touched them without fear. Shadows among the stars, Nerea Valen adjusted the high collar of her laboratory coat, ensuring it covered the ridged scarring that crept up her neck. The crystalline walls of Asteria Prime's research dome reflected the blue-white light of the binary stars outside, casting prismatic patterns across her violet skin. She avoided looking at these reflections. On Seldar, where symmetry and unblemished appearance were considered signs of intellectual superiority, her scarred face had become her prison. Dr. Valen, the specimen analysis is complete, the automated system announced. Display results, she replied, grateful for the solitude of her laboratory. Here, among her experiments and data, she didn't have to endure the sidelong glances or poorly concealed revulsion of her colleagues. 3 orbital cycles ago, a containment breach in the quantum crystallization chamber had saved dozens of young researchers but left her with a network of raised scars across the left side of her face and neck. Before the accident, she had been celebrated as one of Keldar's most promising xenobiologists. Now, she was a reminder of imperfection in a society that prized flawlessness. The door to her laboratory slid open with a soft hiss. Nerea didn't turn. The council has requested your presence at tomorrow's reception, said Elder Talus, her mentor and one of the few who still addressed her directly, rather than through digital communications. The Earth delegation arrives at first light. Nerea's fingers stilled over her console. I've prepared the research briefs. They can be transmitted electronically. Talus moved closer, her age-whitened eyes softening. Nerea, you cannot hide forever. Your contributions to our understanding of cross-species biology are precisely why you should be present. My appearance will distract from the science, Nerea said quietly. You know how the council feels about imperfections being visible during diplomatic events. Which is precisely why I insisted, Talus countered. It's time our people remembered that value lies in more than aesthetic perfection. Besides, humans are different. They bear their own marks and scars without shame. Nerea's hand unconsciously rose to touch the ridged tissue near her jaw. So I've read, but theory and practice are different matters. The delegation includes several scientists and a medical officer interested in our regenerative technologies. Your insights will be valuable. Talus paused. Wear your ceremonial mantle if you must, but be there. After Talus left, Nerea accessed the files on the human delegation. 12 representatives from Earth's United Science Coalition, arriving as part of the first extended cultural and scientific exchange. Their species fascinated her. So adaptable, so varied in their appearances and beliefs, yet somehow cohesive. She lingered on the biography of one Dr. Malik Hassan, trauma specialist and research lead for experimental regenerative medicine. His credentials were impressive, though what caught her attention was a brief note about his work with burn survivors on Earth. That night, in her private quarters, Nerea removed the high-necked garment that concealed her scars and stared at her reflection. The left side of her face bore a latticework of pale markings against her violet skin, disrupting the symmetry so prized by her people. Once she had been considered beautiful. Now junior researchers averted their gaze when passing her in the corridors. Perhaps, she whispered to her reflection, there is something to learn from these humans after all. As she prepared for sleep, the notification system chimed with a final reminder about tomorrow's reception. Nerea decided she would attend, but would wear her ceremonial mantle with its high face-shadowing hood. She wasn't quite ready to bare her scars to scrutinizing eyes, human or Seldarian. The Earth delegation. The grand reception hall of Asteria Prime gleamed with polished crystalline surfaces, designed to capture and refract light in patterns that Seldarians found mathematically pleasing. Nerea lingered in a shadowed alcove, the hood of her ceremonial mantle drawn forward to obscure the left side of her face. From this vantage point, she observed the human delegation with scientific curiosity. They were more diverse in appearance than she had anticipated. Their skin tones ranged from deep brown to pale cream, their heights and builds varying significantly. Most striking to Nerea was how many bore what Seldarians would consider imperfections. A crooked nose here, asymmetrical features there, even visible scars that they made no attempt to hide. Elder Talus approached, accompanied by a tall human man with warm brown skin and closely cropped black hair, flecked with silver at the temples. His eyes were deep and thoughtful, surrounded by fine lines that suggested frequent smiling. "Dr. Vallon," Talus said, "may I present Dr. Malik Hassan, head of the medical research team from Earth." "Dr. Hassan, this is Nerea Vallon, our leading xenobiologist and the author of the comparative physiology brief you found so illuminating." Malik extended his hand in the human greeting gesture. "Dr. Vallon, your work on cross-species cellular regeneration is groundbreaking. I have a dozen questions about your quantum protein synthesis technique." Nerea hesitated before accepting his handshake. His palm was warm against her cooler skin, his grip firm but gentle. "I'm pleased the research was useful," she replied, careful to keep the scarred side of her face angled away. "Useful is an understatement," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Your approach could revolutionize treatment for severe trauma patients on Earth." Before Nerea could respond, a commotion erupted across the hall. One of the younger Seldarian attendants had dropped a serving tray, sending crystalline glasses shattering across the floor. The shards caught light, projecting dangerous rainbow patterns that could damage unprotected eyes. Instinctively, Nerea rushed forward, pulling a protective field generator from her belt. In her haste, her hood slipped back, fully revealing her scarred face as she activated the containment field around the refractive shards. The room fell silent. Nerea felt the familiar weight of stares, not just from her people but now from the humans as well. She quickly pulled her hood forward again, but the damage was done. The young attendant was stammering apologies, clearly mortified both by the accident and by being saved by someone considered disfigured. "That was impressive," Malik said, approaching her. "Quick thinking with that field generator." Nerea nodded stiffly. "A basic safety protocol." She turned to leave, but he gently touched her arm. "I noticed the scarring pattern," he said quietly. "Quantum energy burns, aren't they? Similar to what we call radiation burns on Earth." She froze. "I should return to my laboratory." "Actually, I was hoping to see it," Malik said, surprising her. "Your laboratory, I mean. If your research is even half as remarkable as your reflexes just now, I'd consider it a privilege." Elder Vexus, a senior council member known for his traditional views, approached with a tight expression. "Dr. Vallon, perhaps our guest would prefer a tour from someone more representative of Seldarian achievement." Malik's expression hardened subtly. "With respect, Elder, I specifically requested Dr. Vallon based on her published work. If she's willing, she's exactly who I wish to speak with." Nerea looked between them, noting Vexus's barely concealed disdain and Malik's quiet determination. Something unfamiliar stirred within her, a spark of defiance. "My laboratory is this way, Dr. Hassan," she said, straightening her shoulders. "I believe you'll find our regenerative synthesis chambers particularly relevant to your research." As they walked away from the reception, Malik matched his pace to hers. "I hope I didn't overstep," he said. "But I've found that people like Elder Vexus exist on every world, those who confuse appearance with worth." Nerea glanced at him, studying his face openly for the first time. "And you don't?" "In my work," he replied. "I've seen too many beautiful souls and scarred bodies to make that mistake. Besides," he added with a slight smile, "on Earth, we have an expression. It's our scars that make us interesting." For the first time in 3 orbital cycles, Nerea felt something lighten in her chest. A heaviness she had carried for so long she had forgotten its absence might feel like flight. Healing touches. The following weeks brought a new rhythm to Nerea's carefully ordered life. Each morning Malik would arrive at her laboratory, often bringing strange but pleasant earth beverages he called coffee or chai. Together, they worked on adapting Seldarian quantum protein synthesis for human cellular structures, their conversations flowing easily between scientific exchange and cultural insights. Today, they were testing modified regenerative compounds on synthetic human tissue samples. Nerea adjusted the molecular resonance, her violet fingers dancing over the holographic controls with practiced precision. "You never mentioned how you got your scars," Malik said as he calibrated the scanning equipment. His tone was casual, as if asking about the weather. Nerea's hands stilled momentarily. "A containment breach in the quantum crystallization chamber," she finally said. "I was overseeing a group of junior researchers when the stabilizers failed." "And you got them out," Malik concluded, looking up from his work. "I did what was necessary." She attempted to refocus on the molecular adjustments. But Malik had moved closer, his presence warm and steady beside her. "May I?" he asked, his hand hovering near her face. No one had deliberately touched her scars since the medical team that had treated her. Seldarians avoided physical contact with marked individuals when possible, yet something in his eyes, not pity, but genuine interest, made her nod slightly. His fingertips traced the raised pattern along her cheekbone with feather-light pressure. "The cellular structure has remarkable resilience," he observed, his voice taking on a professional tone that somehow made the intimate gesture easier to bear. But the quantum energy disrupted the normal regenerative process, making it permanent, she finished, a constant reminder of imperfection. Malik's hand dropped to his side, but his gaze remained steady. "On Earth there's a tradition called kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, highlighting the breaks rather than hiding them. The philosophy behind it is that something becomes more beautiful for having been broken and mended." He smiled slightly. "Your scars remind me of that. They're proof of courage, not imperfection." Nerea felt her chest tighten with unfamiliar emotion. Seldarians don't see it that way. Perhaps they're not looking properly. His hand brushed against hers as he reached for a scanner, lingering a moment longer than necessary. Sometimes we need someone else's perspective to see ourselves clearly. The laboratory door slid open unexpectedly, revealing Elder Vexus with 2 council aides. His cold gaze took in their proximity, his mouth tightening with disapproval. "Dr. Vallon, the council requests a progress report on the human compatibility studies," he said, pointedly ignoring Malik. "Immediately." After they departed, a silence fell over the laboratory. Malik broke it first. "He doesn't approve of our collaboration?" "It's not the collaboration that concerns him," Nerea said quietly. "It's the familiarity." Understanding dawned in Malik's eyes. "Ah, and is that why you've been declining my invitations to join the cultural exchange dinners?" Nerea busied herself reorganizing sample containers. It would create unnecessary complications. For whom? When she didn't answer, he continued, "There's a gathering tomorrow evening, informal, just sharing stories and music. Would these complications arise if you came as my guest?" She looked at him then. This human who had somehow slipped past her carefully constructed barriers. "Yes," she admitted. "But perhaps I'm tired of arranging my life around other people's discomfort." Malik's smile was like sunrise over Kelder's crystal forests. "Tomorrow evening, then. I'll meet you at the East Atrium." He gathered his notes. "And Nerea? Leave the hood down. Your scars catch the light beautifully." After he left, Nerea stood motionless by her workstation, her fingertips unconsciously tracing the path his had taken across her scarred cheek. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine that these marks might be something other than a burden, perhaps even something precious, when seen through the right eyes. Cultural collisions. The central garden dome of Asteria Prime was transformed for the evening's cultural exchange. Earth plants, vibrant and chaotic compared to the geometric precision of Caldarian flora, had been arranged alongside native crystal growths, creating a striking harmony of contrasts. Soft music flowed from both human instruments and Seldarian harmonic resonators. Nerea hesitated at the entrance, one hand unconsciously reaching for the hood she had deliberately left down. Her long silver-white hair was instead arranged in a simple style that did nothing to conceal the scarring that marked her violet skin. "You came," Malik said, appearing at her side. His smile warmed his eyes as he took in her appearance. "And you look radiant." A ripple of attention spread through the gathered Seldarians. Most quickly averted their eyes, but some, particularly the younger researchers who remembered her rescue, offered tentative nods of acknowledgement. "People are staring," she murmured. "Let them," he replied, offering his arm. "Perhaps they'll learn something." As the evening progressed, Nerea found herself drawn into conversations with humans who seemed genuinely fascinated by her insights on Seldarian biology and culture. None of them showed the slightest discomfort at her appearance. One human scientist, Dr. Lakshmi Patel, even shared images of her own work with burn survivors on Earth who decorated their scars with metallic pigments, transforming them into art. "The body remembers trauma," Lakshmi explained, "but we can choose what story our scars tell, one of loss or one of survival." Later, As ethereal notes from a Seldarian crystal harp filled the air, Malik led Nerea to a quieter corner of the garden. Their hands brushed, then linked, his warm fingers intertwining with her cooler ones. "I leave in 3 weeks," he said softly, "when my team returns to Earth." The words fell between them, heavy with unspoken implications. Nerea looked at their joined hands, violet against brown, so different yet fitting together so naturally. "I know," she replied. "I've been authorized to invite a Seldarian scientist to continue our collaborative research at the Earth Science Directorate." His eyes held hers. "It would be for at least 1 Earth year." Before she could respond, Elder Vexus approached, flanked by 2 senior council members. His gaze flicked dismissively over their joined hands. "Dr. Valen, this display is inappropriate," he said coldly. "You are creating a spectacle that reflects poorly on all Kelder." Malik straightened. "With respect, Elder, Dr. Valen is participating in exactly the kind of cultural exchange this program was designed to foster. Our concern is not with cultural exchange, Dr. Hassan, but with the nature of your interactions." Vexus's tone could have frozen nitrogen. Dr. Valen's unfortunate condition already makes her an unsuitable representative for official functions. To compound this with behavior that suggests a personal entanglement with an off-worlder is unacceptable. Nerea felt a familiar shame trying to take hold, but beside it grew something new: indignation. "My condition, as you call it, was acquired saving the lives of Keldarian researchers. Lives deemed more valuable than my appearance, apparently. Your sacrifice was noted in your service record," Vexus said dismissively, "but that doesn't change the fact that your current behavior undermines our societal values." "Perhaps," said a new voice, "those values require reassessment." Elder Talus stepped forward, her aged face serene but determined. "The council formed this cultural exchange to learn from our differences. Vexus, yet you seem determined to reject any perspective that challenges our preconceptions." Other Seldarians had gathered, drawn by the confrontation. Nerea saw uncertainty in their expressions, but also curiosity, and in some of the younger ones a spark of something that might have been hope. "This isn't merely about appearance," Vexus insisted. "It's about maintaining our cultural identity." "No," Nerea said, finding strength in Malik's steadfast presence beside her. "It's about fear. Fear that if we acknowledge worth beyond perfection, the entire structure of our society might need to change." The garden had fallen silent, both humans and Seldarians watching the exchange with rapt attention. "I believe," Talus said into the silence, "that is precisely what evolution requires of us. Change, adaptation, seeing with new eyes." She turned to address the gathered crowd. "Tonight's exchange will continue. Those uncomfortable with new perspectives are, of course, free to withdraw." Vexus's face hardened, but he recognized the subtle shift in the room. With a curt nod, he and his supporters departed, leaving a palpable lightening of atmosphere in their wake. As conversation slowly resumed, Malik squeezed Nerea's hand gently. "Are you all right?" She realized she was trembling slightly, but not from fear. "I've been silent for 3 cycles," she said. "It feels liberating to finally speak." Later, as they walked along the station's observation deck, the binary stars of the Selder system casting dual shadows before them, Malik returned to his earlier question. "Earth would welcome your expertise, Nerea, and I would welcome," he paused, searching for the right words, "the chance to discover what this connection between us might become, away from the weight of expectations here." Nerea gazed out at the stars, the same stars that would shine on Earth seen from a different angle. "I've never left Kelder space. It's terrifying," he admitted with a small smile, "and exhilarating." She turned to him, allowing herself to fully meet his gaze without hiding. "I need time to consider." "Of course," he said, though she could see hope warring with caution in his eyes. "Whatever you decide, these weeks working with you have been illuminating." Under the glow of distant suns, Nerea did something she had never dared before. She leaned forward and pressed her lips gently to his, a human gesture she had studied but never experienced. His arms encircled her with careful tenderness, and for the first time since her scarring, she felt not broken, but simply and wonderfully alive. Choosing new horizons. The preparations for the Earth delegation's departure transformed Asteria Prime into a flurry of activity. Equipment was packed, research findings cataloged, and final diplomatic courtesies exchanged. Through it all, Nerea worked methodically in her laboratory, finalizing the transfer of data that represented months of collaborative effort. Her decision remained unmade, or perhaps she admitted to herself she was afraid to acknowledge the choice her heart had already settled on. A message notification chimed softly. Elder Talus requested her presence in the council chambers immediately. Unusual given the departure preparations, but not entirely surprising. The events at the cultural exchange had stirred considerable debate among Seldarians. The council chamber was a perfect dome of crystal and light, designed to eliminate shadows. To Keldarians, symbols of deception and hidden intent. Nerea entered with her head high, her scars visible to the 7 elders seated in a semicircle. Elder Vexus sat at the center, his expression impassive. Dr. Valen, Talus began, the council has been discussing your potential participation in the extended research program on Earth. Nerea's pulse quickened. I wasn't aware the council had been informed of Dr. Hassan's invitation. The invitation was officially extended through diplomatic channels, Vexi said. And the council has concerns. Of course they did. Nerea steeled herself for the familiar arguments about appropriate representation of Keldarian society. Your research on quantum protein synthesis is considered vital to Seldarian interests, Vexus continued. There are questions about the wisdom of allowing such knowledge to be further developed off-world. Not what she had expected. The research is collaborative, she countered. Earth has already contributed significant advances to the work. Nevertheless, another elder interjected, your expertise represents a considerable investment by Seldarian society. Some feel it would be inappropriate for that investment to benefit Earth primarily. The true concern became clear. Not her appearance, but her value. The irony was not lost on her. And what of my choice in the matter? She asked quietly. Talus leaned forward. That is precisely why you are here, Nerea. The council is divided. Some believe your personal connection with Dr. Hassan compromises your scientific objectivity. Others, she said with a pointed look at Vexus, suggest that your physical condition makes you susceptible to the acceptance you found among humans. My physical condition, Nerea repeated, a new steadiness in her voice. The scars I bear from saving Seldarian lives, the imperfection that made me invisible in our society until suddenly my knowledge became too valuable to lose. She looked around the chamber, meeting each elder's gaze directly. For 3 cycles I accepted the belief that my worth was diminished by these marks. I worked in isolation, spoke only when spoken to, hid my face to spare others discomfort. She touched her scarred cheek. Then humans arrived, beings who see scars as stories, not flaws, who judge worth by actions, not appearance. You speak of personal matters, Vexus said dismissively. The council's concern is with Seldarian scientific advancement. No, Nerea said, surprising herself with her calm certainty. You speak of ownership of my mind, my research, my future. But I am not property of the council, no matter how much you invested in my education. A murmur ran through the chamber. Seldarians rarely challenged the council so directly. What exactly are you saying, Dr. Valen? Talus asked, though her slight smile suggested she already knew. I'm accepting the Earth position, Nerea said. My research will continue to benefit both worlds through the exchange agreement. But my path forward will be one I choose, not one assigned to compensate for what you perceive as my deficiencies. She expected anger, perhaps threats of professional consequences. Instead, Talus rose and approached her. The council vote was 4-3 in favor of permitting your departure, she said softly. This was merely the formal hearing to record your decision. Her aged hand briefly touched Nerea's arm. Some of us have been waiting a very long time for a Seldarian to speak as you just did. The observation deck was nearly empty as Asteria Prime's rotation brought the binary sunset into view. Nerea stood at the viewport, watching crimson and gold light play across the crystal structures of the research station. There you are, Malik said, coming to stand beside her. I was beginning to think you were avoiding me before our departure. Not avoiding, she said. Just saying goodbye to one life before beginning another. He studied her face. Then you've decided? In answer, she held out a data crystal. My formal acceptance of the Earth Science Directorate position. all approved by the council. The joy that broke across his features was like sunlight. Without hesitation, he pulled her into an embrace, heedless of the few other Seldarians present who turned to stare. I was preparing myself to leave you behind, he admitted against her hair. I'd convinced myself it was too much to ask, leaving your world, your people. Nerea drew back slightly, meeting his gaze. What I'm leaving isn't my true home anymore. Home should be where you're seen, truly seen. And Earth? Are you afraid? Terrified, she admitted with a smile. But also, ready. The council can debate all they want about whether beauty equals worth. I've found my answer. As the starship prepared for departure the next day, Nerea stood on the boarding ramp looking back at the gathered Seldarians. Most were colleagues come to bid formal farewells, but among them stood a group of younger researchers, including the attendant she had saved from the shattered crystal shards. To her surprise, they raised their hands in a gesture of respect, their eyes meeting hers without flinching from her scars. A small beginning, perhaps. A crack in rigid perfection where new understanding might grow. Malik waited for her inside the ship, his hand extended in welcome. As Nerea took it and the doors closed behind her, she felt not the severing of ties, but the forging of new ones. Across stars, across differences, across all the beautiful imperfections that made connection possible. Ahead lay Earth and a future neither of them could predict, but they would face it together. Two beings who had learned to see beyond surface to substance, beyond scars to the strength they represented. And that, Nerea thought as the ship lifted into the stars, was the most perfect thing of all.